Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Miguel Noob and I'm back with another March to the King Godzilla 2018 video. In this video, I originally wanted to talk about the chances of us getting King Kong versus Godzilla, but now I want to actually talk about an entire legendary cinematic universe featuring King Kong, Godzilla, and Pacific Rim. Alright, here we go. First off, the rumor of a crossover between Godzilla and Pacific Rim happened as early as, I believe it was 2012, where Legendary wanted Guillermo del Toro, sorry if I butchered that name, but they wanted del Toro to include Godzilla in Pacific Rim. I believe that was a rumor from 2012, if not, yeah, I believe it was a rumor from 2012. Del Toro decided he wanted Pacific Rim to be its own thing, so Godzilla became its own movie, and that's why we got Pacific Rim and Godzilla. Now, while Pacific Rim and Godzilla were both being released and press conferences were coming out, Thomas Tull, Gareth Edwards, and Del Toro all joked about Godzilla and Pacific Rim crossing over. Godzilla was called a Category 10 kaiju by Tull and Gareth Edwards in a joking way. Edwards say he and Del Toro would have to fight to see who would get to direct the crossover, and there was just a lot of joking between the companies. Now, Legendary, I believe, does want to do Godzilla vs. Pacific Rim one day if they can do it, if Toho allows them to do it, because of the simple fact that it's a crossover film, it's Godzilla, and it's the Jaegers. People would go see a Pacific Rim vs. Godzilla movie just because, like I say, it's a crossover film, and Godzilla has the name brand. Pacific Rim did well overseas, but people would actually go see a crossover film. And since it's in-house, Legendary wouldn't have to pay that much money. I'm going to get to the details on Godzilla and Legendary a little later. At Comic-Con 2014, last year's... because this year's Comic-Con passed. So last year's Comic-Con in 2014, Legendary revealed that Pacific Rim 2 was coming out, Godzilla 2 was coming out. We expected both these movies to come out. Well, not really Pacific Rim 2. We were hoping, because it was kind of a... Pacific Rim was kind of a flop in the US, but it did well overseas. But then Legendary had dropped the huge bombshell that they're bringing King Kong back in a movie called Skull Island. Now, here's where the wheels got to turning and all the kaiju monster fans got excited. King Kong, Godzilla, and Pacific Rim are all under the Legendary umbrella now. If Skull Island has the potential, this movie is going to either break... Skull Island is going to either make or break this proposed trilogy, because if King Kong shows up at his 25 regular size, his 25-foot self, there's probably not going to be a crossover unless they... I will explain it later why King Kong 25 feet could still work as a crossover, but if he shows up at his 25-foot self, there's probably not going to be a crossover. If King Kong, as Rob from ETN mentioned, if King Kong shows up at 250 feet tall in Skull Island, Legendary will have King Kong vs. Godzilla, a remake, or Godzilla vs. King Kong, which I think would be called nowadays. Godzilla vs. King Kong will happen if we see a giant King Kong. I don't see King Kong vs. Godzilla at least not being thought as if King Kong shows up at least 200 feet tall. Another thing with Godzilla and Pacific Rim, though, Guillermo del Toro said that he wants to do Pacific Rim 2, but if he can do Pacific Rim 3, his dream for Pacific Rim 3 is Godzilla vs. Pacific Rim. So that was a recent interview within the last week, maybe 2 weeks old at most. So Del Toro still wants to do Godzilla vs. Pacific Rim. The only two people that would stop Godzilla vs. Pacific Rim or King Kong vs. Godzilla are Toho and then Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, when they broke away from Legendary, they kept the rights to Godzilla with them. So Legendary is partnered with Universal, which is why they're doing King Kong. It's why Pacific Rim 2 is coming out under Legendary and Universal's brand versus Universal and Warner Brothers brand. But Godzilla is still with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers would have to be paid off, or they would have to sign on to this project in order for us to get Godzilla vs. King Kong. Toho does not like Godzilla and crossovers, but as far as I know, they consider King Kong a special circumstance. Toho, I don't believe, as long as they have enough money rolling in, I don't think Toho is going to shut down Godzilla vs. King Kong. I think Warner Brothers is our only obstacle right now from getting Godzilla vs. King Kong on the big screen. And like I said, Skull Island is an obstacle if they don't make a giant King Kong. Now, I'm going to... And another thing is, Garrett Edwards said he wanted to make a Destroy All Monsters Godzilla film as his ultimate dream for a sequel. If we do Godzilla 2, Godzilla 3, and Pacific Rim 2, and Skull Island, if they all sell well and we get all the obstacles out the way, Destroy All Monsters could very well be King Kong versus Godzilla versus Pacific Rim all in one movie. Pacific Rim already introduced the fact that we can travel to other universes. So let's say the aliens, instead of just making their own monsters, they bring King Kong and Godzilla in. Assuming we get Godzilla versus King Kong in the same universe, they bring King Kong and Godzilla to the Pacific Rim universe to fight against the Jaegers, and then as well as more kaiju being made, like more Otochis, more Slatners, more Leatherbacks, Knife Heads, for example. If all those monsters fought, that would pretty much be a Destroy All Monsters kind of film. But even so, that's just a big dream. I doubt, even if, like I say, if we got Godzilla vs. Pacific Rim and King Kong vs. Godzilla, I still don't think we'd get King Kong, Godzilla, and Pacific Rim all in one movie. Even if Legendary had all three, I don't think we'd get all three in one film. Now, another thing about... I said if Kong is his regular 25, 50-foot self, that there might still be hope for a crossover. Now, this is getting real far out there, okay, so bear with me. If Kong is dead in Skull Island, but the government has his body, and Legendary had permission to put Godzilla, Pacific Rim, and Kong all in one universe, all they would have to do to still make King Kong vs. Godzilla happen, while keeping Kong his regular 25, 50-foot self in Skull Island, is introduce Jurassic World to the universe, which is also Legendary and Universal also has that under their control. There was an interview with the cast of Jurassic World that they mentioned they want to see Godzilla fight the Indominus Rex. So let's assume, and we know genetic engineering is a huge part of the Jurassic World franchise. All that they would have to do, and like I said, I told you I was going to get far out there. I don't think this is going to happen, but I'm just giving everybody a little bit of hope to hold on to. All they would have to do is get Kong's DNA, get the Indominus Rex's DNA, and make them 300 feet tall to fight Godzilla. And if they really wanted to fan service it, they'd make 300 foot tall Raptors and T-Rexes. But like I say, this is a fan service. I actually had an idea. I would rather a Universal monster fighting game where they took King Kong, a couple Jaegers, a couple kaiju from Pacific Rim, Godzilla, and Indominus, Spinosaurus, the Raptors, maybe the Mosasaur, and T-Rex from Jurassic Park, and put them in a giant monster fighting video game, because you can do anything in video games and get away with it. You can't really do it for movies, but like I said, this is the ultimate fan dream. If they could do this, they could combine Jurassic World, Pacific Rim, King Kong, Godzilla into one giant Legendary cinematic universe. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could happen. But like I say, it's far out there. Stranger things have happened, but I don't think there's enough money in the world, and I don't think the movie will pull in enough money to make this happen. As much as I want to say it, Godzilla movies aren't going to do $1 billion at the box office. It would take... Well, Jurassic World did, but like I say, it would take like Jurassic World levels of monies in order to tie all the universes together. And like I said, that's too crazy even for us giant monster fans. We don't want to see Jurassic World, King Kong, Godzilla, and Pacific Rim all in one universe. I do hold out hope that we're going to get Godzilla vs. King Kong. I do hope Toho will play ball. I want Warner to play ball. I want Legendary Universal to play ball so we can get this movie. I think this movie could be huge. I would like for it to take place after Godzilla 3. Maybe Godzilla's final film is King Kong vs. Godzilla. Another film I thought would have been cool would have been if they made Godzilla, King Kong, King Ghidorah all fight in one film, and they just titled it King of the Monsters. But like I say, I don't think that was happening. One more one-on-one Godzilla vs. King Kong. Make Kong. All Kong has to do is get to 250 feet tall. He doesn't need to be eye level with Godzilla. I could, like, say 200 feet is good. I imagine King Kong to be half Godzilla's size. He's faster and he's smarter than Godzilla. He uses the environment to his advantage, where Godzilla can just tear through everything Kong throws at him. So Kong has to fight smart in order to battle Godzilla. And like I say, another thing with that is, like I say, Warner Brothers would have to play ball because they still control the rights to Godzilla. Legendary Universal control the rights to Kong, and so those are the factors. Like I say, Toho has to agree to it. Warner Brothers, Legendary, and Universal have to all agree. But King Kong versus Godzilla, I think this is the closest it's ever been to happening since 1962 when they originally did it. And like I say, stranger things have happened. If you tell somebody 2 years ago Spider-Man was going to be in the Avengers, they would have laughed at you and be like, dude, no, he's not. And if you would have told somebody, hey, Fox is going to make a Deadpool movie, they would have been, yeah, maybe. The Batman vs. Superman movie from 2 years ago, that maybe. But like I say, the biggest one, Spider-Man and Marvel. Boxing fans would know this one 2 years ago. If you would have said Mayweather versus Pacquiao was happening, nobody would have believed you. So like I said, stranger things have happened. So let's all hold out hope. A new Dragon Ball Z series just happened after 20 years almost. Like I say, this is the world of reboots and remakes, and stranger things have happened. So hopefully we do get Godzilla versus King Kong. And hopefully it happens. Maybe even Godzilla vs. King Kong vs. Pacific Rim. But like I say, I do think Godzilla vs. King Kong could happen potentially, and I do think Godzilla vs. Pacific Rim is being planned to happen after Pacific Rim 3 if they announce it, and after Godzilla 3. I think they'll do 2 trilogies and then the crossover, because there's too much chatter and hints about Godzilla and Pacific Rim crossing over to at least not get that crossover. Alright, thank you everybody. I'm Miguel Newman. If you enjoyed this video, please like, rate, comment, and subscribe. Have an enjoyable day.